everything that's to come.
I don't believe that.
I know. I don't think I did either. Until I was on fire, reaching for Mac. And then there was nothing there.
But you can tell me how to stop it, right? How do we change it?
I'm not sure you can.
So obviously, one of the most common questions when it comes to the finale of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is how did things change? What happened originally? I think it was all implied, but I'm going to talk about it in detail over the course of this video. One other thing that I'm going to be discussing over the course of this video as well is there were a couple of points during the events of Season 5 that things could have been changed if certain members of Team S.H.I.E.L.D. were to decide to act differently. And no, I'm not just talking about Yo-Yo. I know a lot of people thought throughout the season or throughout the second half of the season that I do just hate Yo-Yo for no good reason, even though I did hate her actions, didn't hate the person, but I'm going to be talking about mistakes that Yo-Yo made, mistakes that Daisy made, and mistakes that Fitz Simmons made. Now, some of those mistakes, even though major, do have a defense. In case of Daisy and Yo-Yo, there is a defense. In case of Fitz and Simmons, there is no real defense over there, given their level of intelligence, their scientific background, and the fact that they just ignored the science of all of it and went a little bit emotional at some point. So yeah, I'm gonna be discussing all of that and more over the course of this video, but first things first. Welcome back, guys. So how did all of it change? I'm making a few assumptions over here based on the characters, based on the character development over the course of 5 seasons so far. So number 1, while we do know that Coulson did enjoy every little bit of the second chance at life he was given on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., he did always feel that this life was just abnormal. It was not normal in any way, shape, or form. It's not like it's normal to be brought back to life after being stabbed in the heart by none other than Loki and a scepter. So you've got the Kree blood or the Kree DNA that brought him back to life, its side effects, the drawings on the wall, among other things. All of those things and more does not make you think that Coulson would want to be injected with some foreign substance to keep him alive once more, something that might make his life a little bit more complicated than it was with the Kree blood. And he definitely did insinuate that on the finale in his conversation with Simmons. It is as well possibly insinuated in future Yo-Yo's words. Loyalty. Loyalty is what brought us down. Loyalty is what made this happen every single attempt in this loop. But it's not the fact that they saved Coulson, because Coulson was never saved, but it is instead the fact that they try to save Coulson every single time, over and over again. So in previous attempts of this loop, I don't think that Coulson ever took the serum. He always rejected the idea, he never took it in, but at the very same time, neither did Daisy in order to boost her powers and defeat Talbot. Number 2, we know that Mac and Polly died, and they probably died during that scene when they had to face with those 2 marauders. Now we know that it's not really easy to defeat them. We know that it takes either a team or Daisy or Talbot to defeat them. So pretty much that, along with the fact that in the original timeline, Fitz did not die and Robin ended up in the custody of May, makes you second change to the timeline. But finally though, you've got number 3. Elena was kind of different in this timeline. So once again, it does seem from the words of future Elena that she might have never actually been against the saving of Coulson, not in previous iterations of this time loop, previous attempts within this time loop. So phrases like, we brought everything that is to come, or our loyalty, all of these phrases kind of indicate that she was part of them, that she agreed with everything they did in every single attempt of this loop and prior to this one attempt. So one of the things that changed over here is Yo-Yo. Yo-Yo every single time tried to save Coulson. Yo-Yo every single time tried to help Coulson. But however, this time around she didn't really care all that much for saving Coulson as much as she cared for saving the entire world. Not a bad thing, by the way. So I would assume that on doing that, on talking about the serum being needed to defeat Graviton, she opened the eyes of Coulson on what needs to be done. And instead of Coulson just refusing to take the serum because he would be repeating this entire experience of having to live through such an artificial life, I'm assuming he thought differently. He started thinking and thinking because of Yo-Yo's words that did not exist in previous iterations and decided to hide the serum within Daisy's gauntlets. That was part of this iteration and none before. Now this part is a little bit iffy, kind of left for the imagination because there is a possibility that he always did that, only Daisy never used it, got conceited by her power, thought she could defeat Talbot and decided, okay, I'm gonna keep the serum, take it back, and save Coulson. But the finale as well did make it pretty obvious that if Talbot were to absorb someone with powers, he would gain their powers instantaneously. That could be proven by his conversation with Robin early on in the events of the finale. It could as well be proven through his conversation with Daisy, in which he talks about absorbing her, gaining her powers, and making the job easier, quaking the Earth in search for the Gravitonium. So in every single attempt of the sloop, either Coulson never hid the centipede in Daisy's gauntlets, or she found it but never actually used it, wanting to use it on Coulson in order to save him, but in the end the outcome was the same. So Talbot was able to pin Daisy down, absorb her, gain her powers, and quake the planet, making him into the real destroyer of worlds. Now going back to that question of whether or not Coulson hid the centipede serum in Daisy's gauntlets every single time, and if he did, whether or not Daisy decided to use it, here's another option. Now because we do not know if there was only one iteration in this time loop before this one, or there were multiple iterations, there is always the chance that both of them did happen over multiple iterations, but the only thing that will always remain a constant is that Daisy never used the serum. But let's move on and talk about the many moments in which the timeline could have changed prior to the finale of the season. None of that though has been done because this season had 22 episodes, 22 packed episodes. If they would have spread it out a little bit, they would have done that early on, never got to the Talbot point. But let us talk Fitz and SIMMONS first. They're feeding into Yo-Yo's idea that she is invincible, going with her out on a limb, trying to find out that machine, the particle infusion chamber. That was a point where everything could have been changed. Now I did check out the timeline on that episode where they made their escape, went for the machine, got to the machine, and started handling the situation that ended up with Ruby in the machine infused with Gravitonium. Now during the events of that episode, Coulson did make it back to the lighthouse prior to Ruby starting her mutiny against her mother. When you think about it, if Fitz would have waited, and with Coulson knowing about the particle infusion chamber, he would have believed him right away, and if that were to be the case, they would have stopped the entire thing. Ruby would have never gotten inside it because everyone, Daisy included, would have been right there waiting for her. And we do know from early on in the events of the very same episode that Daisy could give Ruby a run for her money. Now I did state early on that the Fitz-SIMMONS mistakes over there are not really justifiable because they knew better, because they are the scientific and smarter minds in the group. So I'm not going to talk about it anymore, and instead I'm going to move on to Yo-Yo. So here's where Yo-Yo made her fair share of mistakes, and these are justifiable because of her situation. I mean, the problem here is her future self, who didn't give her full information. Besides that, her psychological state is kind of understandable. I mean, seeing that person who cut off her arms, knowing that this person might be the reason the one she loves would die, all of that combined, that must weigh a lot. I mean, I could only imagine how that felt like. But in all cases, Yo-Yo's problem is summarized in a few points. If Ruby wasn't the destroyer of worlds, killing her led Hale to go to the Confederacy, give them the location of the lighthouse leading to an entire mess, where Talbot turns into Graviton, the very major villain of the entire season. Now for one thing, you need to know that I never liked the acting of Dove Cameron. I never liked the character of Ruby, if you're gonna assume that in the comments. I know, these are the kind of things people like saying in order to undermine other people's opinions, but no, that is not the case. You could go back to my previous videos and you will realize how much I hated Dove Cameron. And that is exactly why a lot of people did dislike what I had to say about her, and it shows in the comments to so many of my videos when she was still on the series. Another thing you need to consider over here is neither me nor you knows if Ruby would have been talked down in that situation. So neither me nor you should act as a know-it-all and try to assume the outcome was this or that. We will never know. That is why I've always wanted a Groundhog Day kind of situation at the very end of the series, on the finale, in order to figure out the different possible outcomes to such a situation. But Hale does admit that she betrayed the team to the Confederacy on episode 20 because she lost Ruby. That was just the biggest reason why she betrayed them right then and there. So no, like it or not, the attack of the Confederacy, Talbot going Graviton because they had to move him at that point, all of that wouldn't have happened if Ruby weren't to be killed. But finally though, there was Daisy's major mistake, and this one is defensible because of two reasons. Number one, there is the fact that she didn't know, no one would have actually expected that an alien invasion was coming to the lighthouse, and number two, the very same second defense that I did give Elena early on, emotion, care, and love. So Elena loved Mac, she was afraid that Mac would end up dying as a result of all of this, and the same applies to Daisy. She loves Coulson, he's her father figure. As a matter of fact, she's the closest thing he had to a daughter. He says that on season 3, and he's always been her role model and the closest thing she has ever had to a father. But her leaving the lighthouse at that point, you know, the invasion point, to go and get this centipede serum from Tony Kane and then go and dig up her mother's remains, that might have been the cause of a lot of trouble. So Daisy, with her set of powers, could have been the only one capable of stopping the Marauders without even having to move Talbot, leaving him with Simmons, ending up with him in the machine, and ending up with him becoming the real destroyer, Graviton. So yeah, pretty much everyone made mistakes. The fact that Daisy, Coulson, and May brought Talbot back to the base never thought that he might have been brainwashed. I mean, that's a trademark of Hydra. That was a major mistake as well. They could have brought him back but confined him to a cell pending realizing what really happened to him, but they didn't think it through. No matter what the reason was over here, possibly the injury of Deke, they are part of an intelligence agency and they should think these things through. That could have definitely avoided Talbot communicating the location of the lighthouse, the coordinates of the lighthouse with General Hale, and as a direct result, post the death of Ruby, she would have never been able to give them an exact location of the lighthouse. But that being said though, my work here is done. Hopefully that answers all your questions as to how the world was saved at the very end. So let me know in the comments if you do agree with me on any or all aspects that I did present on this video. If you do disagree, please provide your reasons. That helps enrich the conversation and it makes it much more amazing. You can also drop your video requests for Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. or any other series that I do review, or even any series that I don't review. If I do watch them, I'm gonna present you with the kind of video that you want me to present. And finally, you can let me know if you do like this video by dropping it a much appreciated like, and if that were to be the case, you can always subscribe and enable notifications for my future videos, community posts, and live streams. Until my next video though, thank you all for tuning in, and have a great day.